Hello my friends, welcome to a video on how to calm the inner voice. So before we get going, please like and subscribe to the channel if you like these videos. This will allow me to grow my audience and provide you with more value. So go ahead, like and subscribe, and let's get into the bulk of the video. So how to calm your inner voice. This video I'm going to be talking about the monkey mind, or the mental chit-chat, the mental narrative, this mindless chit-chat that goes on in the old noggin, and what it is, what that inner voice is, how we can start to become the observer of that inner voice, and some tools that you can use in your daily life to quickly shift your awareness into a simple state of presence so you can become the observer of that inner voice, and therefore you can start to direct the mind as opposed to the mind directing you. So let's get going. What is the inner voice? Now, the inner voice is this continuous thread of mindless chit-chat that we as humans have going on inside of our mental body, if you like, our mental headspace. Now, this chit-chat in some people is continuous, and it's often very negative because humans have a negativity bias built into their system that's very much from the primitive state of a human, right? It keeps us safe. It tries to perceive threats or dangers, and therefore the mind acts like a computer to go, oh, do you remember this happened before? Let's not go there again. And do you remember when you did this last time? You really shouldn't be doing it this time. And it's this continuous, incessant chat, right? So the negative mind is a very protective mind inside of the body. And it's a built-in primitive mind. And often, most humans are very, very attached to that negative mind. Some people actually have predominantly just negative thoughts and negative narratives and struggle to actually move forward into a more positive, constructive narrative inside of the head. So let's talk about that. So the inner voice, sometimes it might sound like an argument with yourself, right? Like you're in this continuous internal conflict. And actually what people don't realize is that unhappiness is often generated from the fact that we cannot observe and command the mind, and instead that mindless chit-chat is running our life. And if we can just take a step back and find space between that mindless chit-chat and our own awareness, that calm, centered, present state inside of us that is already whole and it's still, if we can find space between that mental chit-chat, that inner voice, and our wholeness, then that can literally change our life. It can change what happens to us. It can change what we experience in life. It can change the way in which we interact and react and respond to life at whole. It can also change our emotions, and it can change the way in which our emotions create feelings inside of our body, which can then start to create tension and stress and rigidity and dis-ease. So the mind, the mantra that we play over and over again in the mind, and our ability to observe that mantra instead of becoming a main player, if you like, is the house we're going to live in. It is the life we are going to make for ourselves. Powerful, right? That is why in yogic practices, I teach Kundalini yoga. That's why I often refer to it in my videos. I teach a lot of yogic teachings in these videos. One of the things that we're doing is we are moving the body to stop the fluctuations of the mind, right? Because if we cannot command the mind will command us. And that's where the unhappiness comes to, because we start to believe every thought. We think we are our thoughts. we forget that we're not our thoughts, okay? So the inner dialogue that's playing about in our head, this sort of like mind clutter, for some people, if they have not become the observer of that mind clutter, this can really dictate their life. So just give you a prime example, okay? The inner voice, if you like, some people might experience it, often we might experience it actually in first person, like I shouldn't do that, I shouldn't have done this, I need to do it better next time. Why have I bothered with that? Why did I say that? And then you might have the third person arguing back at the I, going, yes, you shouldn't have done that. You really should have thought about this. You should have done it better. Next time you shouldn't do that. You really shouldn't say that. And this is sort of like really uncomfortable inner conflict continuously inside of that headspace of, I shouldn't have, and yes, you shouldn't have, and I best do it better next time, and yes, you should do it better next time. I really shouldn't be doing these things. Yes, you're a terrible person. You see what I'm saying? You've probably heard it, right? You're a human. A human, by the way, Hu, light, man, mana in Sanskrit, mind. A light being with a mind. But we often forget that we are a light being, not light beam, light being with a mind. We forget that we are a soul, an infinite soul with a mind and a body as tools to take us from A to B in this life experience. And instead, we think that we are a mind because we haven't been able to become the observer and find some space between that internal inner voice, that mental chit-chat, that mindless chit-chat, and our awareness, our wholeness that is without conflict and it's present, okay? So that's what the inner voice is. The inner voice is this continuous conflict that goes on inside of the mind. The narratives that we have formed, the stories that we have formed, the subconscious patternings that we have formed throughout our life that keep replaying in our head at any given moment, many times in any given moment, yeah, and we can become very attached to that. So when we start to spiritually awake, if you like, I often find that this is one of the first sort of telltale signs of us progressing spiritually is our ability to become the observer of our thoughts. And even if we find it challenging to become the observer of our thoughts, we certainly have started to recognize that those thoughts, those narratives, those patterns in the mind, all of that uncomfortable chit-chat is actually just the mind doing its tool, being the job, doing the job. Yeah, it's not actually us on our whole level. So essentially we are a soul that is infinite and boundless, and on this plane of the earth we have a physical body, a vessel, a meat suit that basically acts like a tool to take us from A to B in this specific physical experience. And we also have a mind that does the same thing. The mind is a tool, it's a servant to the soul. And if we can become the observer of that mental chit-chat, we can use it as a tool. And then we don't have to go, oh, the mind will never shut up. The mind is so annoying. I hate the mind. I can't do the meditation because I hate the mind. It's too loud, it's too noisy. Horrible mind. But actually, the mind is not a horrible thing. It's here for us to direct our life and attune our soul to its path. If we learn how to become the observer of it, if we learn how to command it instead of it commanding us. So essentially what the mind is this tool, this computer that, sure, it tries to keep us safe. This is the negative part of the mind. Not that it's negative, but it's protective. It tries to keep us safe. It's very, very primitive, right? It wants to protect us. It wants to see, oh, there's a perceived danger and there's a perceived threat. What can I pull out of the memory bank from the past to go, maybe you should go in the opposite direction, for example. So we've got that part of the mind, and then we've got the positive mind, which is the absolute opportunist, right? It's an optimist. He goes, I can do this, I can move forward. I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm excited for this. Yeah, and so we need to keep these minds in balance and in check, right? So we have all of this stuff going on inside of our mental headspace. And until we can become the observer of that mental headspace, it's going to dictate our life. It's going to dictate our emotions. It's going to dictate our feelings. The feelings then create stress, tension, and dis-ease in the body. The same as stress, tension, reaction, way in which we're moving through life, and also what happens to us is all about our ability to command the mental headspace. Okay, this is the matrix. You hear everybody talking about the matrix, right? The matrix is the mind. So the mind is there as a servant to the soul. The soul is infinite and it's very boundless. And if we did not have the mind in this human life, for the soul to use as a tool, the soul would be moving around directionless, right? So the mind brings form to the soul, the mind brings discipline to the soul, but we have to understand how to use that mind as a tool instead of it using us as a tool. Okay, so there you have it. That is the inner voice, if you like, this constant narrative that's having an argument with itself inside of the head, making you feel like everything you do is wrong or in conflict. And really, this can be a huge, huge state of unhappiness. Yeah, humans don't often recognize that their state of unhappiness isn't something that's external to their being. Actually, it's an internal conflict that they haven't been able to find space from, and that's the inner voice. And humans really do have this very strong negativity bias. And some people might even find that their thought pattern is extremely negative, and that needs to balance out, right? Everything in life needs a little bit of equilibrium. So if it's really, really strong in the negative direction, we need to bring it into more of a positive state so the pendulum can swing into more balance. And that really takes finding a neutral space in the body, coming back to our awareness so we can find space between our awareness and our thoughts. So in a moment, I'm going to get into tools that you can actually use to start to command the mind and calm that inner voice. But before I get into that, I really want to talk about how the actual mind and the attachment to the thoughts that are continuous inside of the head are affecting your life in general. So say we have a thought, or 500,000 million thoughts every single second. Say we have these thoughts. The thought then creates an emotion. Okay, so we might have the thought of, I really shouldn't have said those words to that person. Then that thought might create an emotion inside of the body, like fear, for example, fearfulness or anxiety. I really shouldn't have said those words to that person. Third person comes in. No, you shouldn't have said that word to those people. Yeah, you're a bad person. Then that thought, that narrative, because we've attached ourselves to it and we think we are that, becomes an emotion of anxiety, an emotion of fear, an emotion of maybe even a bit of sadness or anger. And you can see how my hands are moving when I'm actually talking about those emotions. Those emotions then create a feeling inside of the body, and that feeling inside of the body starts to create a physical reaction. So you can see where if we are extremely attached to our mental headspace and we cannot find space and become the observer of that narrative, of that play, it starts to create an emotion. The emotion creates a feeling. The feeling affects the physical body starts to react. It causes stress, tension, problems, physical attributes, right? The connection between the mind and the body and the health of our physical body is fluidly connected. So if we can start to retrain our ability to observe our mind and take some space from that internal dialogue, and instead of becoming it, we are observing it, then we have the ability to heal our body at the same time. Thoughts are vibrations as well, okay? So everything is energy, as we know. The energy of our thoughts becomes the energy of our experience in life. So if we're continuously thinking negative thoughts, which is fine, but it's very much about how can I observe the negative thoughts instead of becoming them. If we're continuously going down that direction of having all of these negative thoughts and not being able to find space from them, that then starts to become the house that we live in. You'll start to notice that your external situations become more negative. Okay, you stub your toe in the morning when you fall out of bed and you go, oh, stub my toe, this is going to be a really bad day. And then guess what? You burn your hand on the kettle or whatever when you're making a cup of tea and you go, oh, this is so typical, I thought it would be a bad day. Then you get on your clothes for work and you can't find any pants and you can't find anything. You're like, do you know what? Typical me, this is typical me. And you can see how that starts to then affect your day. You actually go into a negative spiral because you haven't been able to find space between the thought patterns and this internal dialogue. I knew I'd stubbed my toe. I shouldn't have then got out of bed so quick. No, you shouldn't. And you shouldn't have made your cup of tea like that. You're very wrong. And trust you to not have any pants for work. Do you see what I'm saying? So it really starts to create the life that you actually live. Okay, final part of the video, I'm going to give you some very short, small tools that you can start to integrate and embody into your daily life so that you can start to become the observer of this inner voice. Okay, the first and foremost thing that I want to give you is conscious movement. I'm just going to say 3 tools because I don't like to overwhelm, or I specifically don't like to be overwhelmed, so maybe you're the same as me. Conscious movement. If we are spending so much time in that mental headspace, guess what? All of our energy is in the head. We need to bring that energy back down into the body. We need to ground that energy. So the first and foremost thing I'm going to tell you to do, if this is something you struggle with, is bring conscious movement into your daily life. It doesn't matter if it's 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a full yoga practice, a walk in the woods with the breath, Tai Chi, Qigong, anything where you are moving the breath, moving the body rather, with the breath in alignment and consciously absorbing yourself in that awareness of action and breath is going to calm the mind. Like I said, the mind and the body are fluidly connected. So if the energy is all up here in the mind, coming back down into the body and actually grounding your energy, bringing yourself back into the body is going to already balance that out. And once you've done that conscious movement, the head will be calmer. And when your head is calmer, you have much more of a fighting chance of becoming the observer of your thoughts. And become the observer of the thoughts straight after your conscious movement, because then you can recognize what becoming the observer is. Then when you have the awareness of that, you can bring it into your daily life more and more through mindfulness. That's my second piece of advice. Conscious movement is the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is actually noticing when you are becoming the inner voice and you're starting to believe everything that it says. When you have those flickers of awareness that you are recognizing, oh no, I'm actually really in my head here. Do something very physical like click your fingers or clap your hands or go stop, switch, say some words or shake it off or change the breath. Do something very physical to say, I've become aware that I am becoming the mental chit chat. Now I need to become the observer. How can I flip the switch? Yeah? So do something because you've become aware. You are giving yourself this sort of like clap. I've become aware. Yes, I've become aware. I've become the observer. Now I just need to learn how to watch instead of embody the whole of the subconscious mind that's ever existed. Okay? And then the third thing that I'm going to give is to spend some time in stillness. This is going to help to balance out energy. Now, it's very hard to spend time in stillness if you've naturally become very, very absorbed in the head. But just spending just a moment in stillness in your day-to-day life, doing absolutely nothing but closing the eyes and maybe listening to the breath, because the breath is an anchor to your moment. Yeah, it's our life force. It keeps us present. Just closing the eyes, becoming still, listening to the breath. And observing. Being inside of your body. So that's it from me today. They're the 3 tips for starting to become the observer of this inner voice. So you can start to direct the mind, use it as a tool instead of the mind using you as a tool, because you are the awareness and you have the ability to do this. Thank you so much for watching today. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you like these videos. Lots of love. Ciao.